Hello and welcome back to another video, and you find me diddling about in my workshop. I'm just about to I'm having a bit of a clear out in here. I'm just trying to sort things out. I'm putting this small 9-inch Pye television back in its case, which is down there. You can't see that, and I've got the did do a little video on this. It's when I found that I was given that had been restored by somebody else, and it works very well, and I'll put it back in the cabinet, and I might show it you working when we're back in the cabinet and got it sorted out. I was going to try and clear my little workbench because I quite fancied over the Christmas period, if it's not too cold, I was going to have a go at and restore a radio, and I thought I've done so many of these over the years, but I thought I was given this one recently, and it's the almost famous Bush DAC90 Bakelite radio. This is one of the later ones. It doesn't work, this one doesn't, unusually. Normally, you know, you'll switch them on and they'll give you something, but this one didn't work, so I thought it might be of interest to have a go, and you know, I'll probably make a little video about, you know, what I find wrong with it, and have a look at, you know, changing the capacitors in it, because I'm sure that's all it'll need, or it'll either be that or you know, a bit of valve problem, or mains dropper, one of those, or several of those. You never can tell, but so that was my intention anyway. But it reminded me, you know, somebody a few weeks ago said to me, you know, how on earth did you get in to radios? And I think it's one of those things you probably just drift into. My interest goes back right as a child, when I was sort of 10, 11. I think my dad taught me how to solder to start with, and then my grandmother gave me an old Pye radio, which didn't work, and more by luck than judgment, I think, I managed to clean all this set up, and with some help I got that working again, and that is where some of my old tape recordings that I put on, the radio programs, were taken off that Pye, it was a Pye Fenman radio, and taped onto an old Mono Grundig 1964 TK23 tape recorder, which I still have, and that's an ongoing project that I'm going to try and have a look at and get that back again, working again. I think it needs some new belts. But I was asked, you know, how did you get interested in radio? And it's a long story, and it reminded me of a funny story. I had a good friend at primary school. I was in my last year at primary school, so I was 11, and I think my friend was 10. He hadn't had his 11th birthday, and I went to a village primary school, a nice primary school, but for the first few years we had a very fiery headmaster who was not afraid of caning or giving boys the slipper. You know, if you stepped out of line, you know, it was addressed in that manner, which isn't very nice, and I'm so pleased, having worked in schools thereafter, but I worked in a school for 20 years nearly, thankfully school is so much more, you know, better, and you know, the children don't have that threat hanging over them, which is awful. But nonetheless, my primary school years were very happy, and we had a new headmaster come in. This old chap moved to a bigger school, and this was after the Christmas holidays, and we didn't know this headmaster, and a friend of mine had, I think his grandparents had died, and they were cleaning his house out, and he'd been given one of these, you know, ubiquitous Bush, you know, battery radios of that ilk. I'm not going to say it because this is a VHF one. It was something like this. I don't think it was certainly a Bush, and that's as much as I can remember. And unusually, there again, I don't know whether it had been done after, or whether it was, you know, I've never really followed the battery, you know, later battery model radios that much. But the on-off switch was on the tone control, and it's got a tone control and a volume, and then you've got your wave change switches up there. So it was similar to this, but this is the on-off is on the volume, which it normally is, but in his case, and this radio didn't work, and obviously way back in, when was this, 1969, 70, thereabouts, he knew I'd had got a soldering iron, and I dabbled in this kind of thing, or was interested in it, and he said, you know, can you have a look at it? Radios in those days were really sought after, you know, they were quite expensive, and although this was an older, you know, model, he still, you know, wanted to get it working. So I said, sure, I'll have a look at it. And I don't remember what I did to it. I think the battery had leaked in it, and I think I put some new battery leads on it. It got like it was the PP9 battery, and I think I put a new, you know, and diddled about with it and got it working very well. And so I took it to school one morning, and I put it in his. We had desks with lift up. There was like a flat worktop, you know, like a tabletop, and then on the end there was like a lift up compartment that you could put your books in, or pencils, and it was quite deep, you know, it was sort of about that deep, and it was a sort of only about that wide, you know, a lift up lid on the end of your desk. Everyone had one, and I think we actually sat two at a desk. There was two, you know, together, and I didn't sit with this other boy, so I sat close to him, and on this morning I put this radio in his bottom of his desk, you know, and thought, and I said, you know, I told him, and the headmaster then come in, and you know, I think this wasn't the first day we'd had this new headmaster. He'd been taught us 2 or 3 days, so we were getting to sort of know him a little bit, and this boy, you know, said, oh, well, does it work? He was trying to have a conversation with me, and this headmaster was trying to tell us what we were going to do for the rest of the day, and blah, 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 and anyway, this boy lifted his desk lid up, and didn't think, and obviously turned this radio, you know, obviously switched the tone switch on, so the radio come on. I had left it with the volume control right up, and it was tuned to Radio 2, and it was about 9 o'clock or thereabouts, and this really loud music, some of you older people out there will remember, he used to be a disc jockey, and he's still alive. I think he's 94 now. Pete Murray used to have a Radio 2 show called Open House that used to start at 9 o'clock, and he used to have this really, and I'll probably try and find a little clip of this theme music. I mean, all radio programmes in those days, they tell me they don't do it anymore. I was only reading about this the other day. I think there's only one DJ now, Steve Wright, that has an intro music and an outro music on his Radio 2 show. Nobody else bothers, but all DJs, you know, like Terry Wogan, Jimmy Young, all had their own intro. John Dunn has that famous Sid Dale Central Park piece of music used to have. He was a great broadcaster, John Dunn. Anyway, so this theme music of Pete Murray's Open House blasted out, you know, the classroom. And the headmaster looked at this boy, boomed at him, and obviously I think he knew I was also in collusion, because he'd caught us talking about, you know, this already that morning. So he just said, you two boys, turn that, he said, first of all he said, turn that noise off, and he said, you two boys, outside my office now. And so, oh my goodness, we really thought we were in really big trouble. We didn't know this headmaster. We didn't know, you know, whether he was, you know, severe on punishment wise or what. So we thought we were in really big trouble. And I know, you know, he kept us waiting outside his office. He got the rest of the class sort of working, and eventually, you know, and I said to this little boy, you know, I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I was all, you know, very much a quiet lad at school, and I said, look, let me do the talking. I'll do the talking on this. So he said, all right. And he was I think he was more worried than me, you know, because his mother, you know, if he ever got into trouble at school, his mother was, oh dear, it was the end of the world kind of thing. So I said, look, let me do the talking and I'll explain. And anyway, this head teacher came back into his office and he called us in, and to our surprise, and it was amazing. He wasn't, you know, nasty. He didn't shout to us. He didn't raise his voice. You know, in fact, he asked us, you know, what we'd been doing. Why had this lad bought a radio to? And so I filled him in. I said, well, sir, you know, I'm interested in radio, and I've been repairing this radio for this, you know, other lad, and I brought it back, and it was totally an accident. He didn't mean to turn it on, and blah blah blah. And he said, oh, I said, yeah, well, this is all very interesting. He said, all very interesting. He said, so you like radio? I said, well, yes, sir, yes. You know, I said, I'm really interested, you know, and I'm, you know, always wanting to learn about, you know. He said, oh, right. He said, well, he said, I've got to give you some sort of punishment. He said, I can't let you get away with this. He said, what you can do, he said, I'll give you 2 weeks. And he said, in 2 weeks' time, on the Friday, he said, before we finish school on the Friday, for the last 20 minutes, I want you to stand up and give a talk about radio and why you like radio and how you repair radio to the whole class. So I thought, oh, and the other lad, who was really into cars, and he'd got some really interesting ideas. He was a really bright lad. He was one of the few lads that got to grammar school. He passed 11 plus, and his talk had to be about cars and what he thought was going to happen with cars in the future and that kind of thing. And I have to say, I think my talk on radio, you know, I don't really remember it. I think I was so worried and having to stand up to the whole class, but it went really well, and you know, I got a round of applause at the end of it, and even the headmaster come and said, well, that was very good, and you know, we like that, and this, that and the other. And this became such an interesting part that he introduced it, and that we went round the whole class, that everyone, you know, had 20 minutes to talk about their outside interest, be it football, ponies, you know, pop groups. You could choose anything, and then we'd start again, and you had to pick another topic and give a 20-minute talk, and it was brilliant, and it taught me, you know, so much that there's a lot more, you know, whereas the other headmaster might have whacked us with a plimsoll and said, confiscated the radio and said, well, don't do that again and never bring a radio to school again, blah blah blah, and you know, that would have been it, and we wouldn't have got nothing out of that at all, you know, apart from probably a few minutes being a bit sore in the nether regions, shall we say, you know. But this, you know, gave us so much more, and I thought, yeah, you know, that there's another way, you know, and as I say, and you know, I thought it was quite inspirational at 11, that was, and so that's basically, you know, it instilled my love of radio, and as I say, but whenever I hear this Pete Murray's open house theme, I just want to cringe and turn away, because, you know, obviously the whole class was just falling about laughing, because obviously this little radio, in like almost a box, there was like louvres cut out in the bottom of these desks, so it was almost like a speaker box, you know. It seemed to amplify it seemed to amplify this, I can't say that word, can I? It seemed to you know, resonate round this sort of wooden box of the desk, and I mean, the whole school, the whole class were in fits of laughter, you know, when this music was blasting out, and the friend, he couldn't turn it off very quickly, and so there we go. That's a little story there about radio, and an early introduction to it. But yeah, we're more likely to have a look at the DAC90 there and see if we can get that one going, and I don't think there's much wrong with it. But I shall carry on now with my tidying up and get this television back in its case. And as always, thank you to everybody that's watched my videos, like them, subscribe, you know, please yourself, you know, it's great to hear from you. I love getting your comments, and I do try and answer everybody's comments. I'm sorry if I do miss some. YouTube doesn't always, you don't always get the notifications, but I do check regularly. So anyway, wishing you all the best, and catch up with you soon, and bye for now anyway.